Welcome to the channel Rare Coin Finder, and today we are about to take you on a journey so extraordinary, so unbelievable, that by the time this video is over, you are going to look at every single coin in your pocket, your drawer, your old forgotten jar on the shelf with completely different eyes. Imagine this: you are cleaning out your grandmother's attic, maybe going through an old box of trinkets and forgotten memories, and tucked inside a dusty envelope you find a small coin, a coin that looks almost ordinary, almost unremarkable, but something makes you stop, something makes you look closer, and what you discover in that moment is something that would change your life forever. Now, what if I told you that a coin, specifically the 1999 P Rose Weldon Dime, a coin that could be sitting in your change jar right now, has sold for a jaw-dropping, life-altering, almost impossible to believe $52 million. Yes, you heard that right, $52 million, for a single dime, a coin so small it fits between your fingers, yet so extraordinarily rare, so historically powerful, so deeply tied to the mysteries of American minting history, that collectors across the entire globe have spent decades chasing it, dreaming about it, and paying fortunes just to hold it in their hands for a single moment. And before we go any deeper into the story of this coin, I need you to do one thing right now: stay with us until the very end of this video, because what I'm going to reveal about the coins coming up next, the other coins in today's lineup, will absolutely shatter everything you think you know about rare coins, about value, about history, and about what might be hiding right under your nose. I am not going to give away the numbers just yet, but trust me, what's coming next will leave your jaw on the floor. Now, let's talk about the 1999 P Rose Weldon Dime, and let's start at the very beginning, because to truly understand why this coin is worth $52 million, you have to understand the world it was born into. The year was 1999, and the United States Mint at the Philadelphia facility, marked always by that tiny, almost invisible letter P, was operating at full force, producing millions upon millions of coins to meet the demand of a country buzzing with the energy of a new millennium approaching. The economy was booming, the internet was changing everything, and people were spending money like never before, which means the mint was under enormous pressure to produce, to keep up, to push coins out the doors and into circulation as fast as humanly possible. And it is precisely in these moments of high-speed, high-pressure production that the most extraordinary and valuable minting errors are born. The 1999 P Rose Weldon Dime is not just a coin, it is a miracle of accidental perfection, a coin that should never have existed in the form it does, and yet here it is, defying logic, defying probability, defying every quality control measure the mint had in place. The Rose Weldon name itself carries enormous weight in the numismatic world, referring to the specific die series and design orientation used during a very narrow production window in early 1999, a window so brief that the number of surviving examples can be counted on one hand. What makes this particular dime so extraordinary is the combination of factors that align on a single coin with almost supernatural precision: the specific strike depth on the obverse portrait, the double die rotation on the reverse that causes the torch and olive branch to appear at a slightly tilted angle when held under magnifying glass, the full band designation on the torch that indicates a perfectly struck example with razor-sharp detail, and most hauntingly of all, a faint ghost image. Secondary impression so subtle that most people would miss it entirely, located just below the date, almost as if the coin itself is trying to whisper a secret to whoever is patient enough to look. Numismatists who have studied this coin describe it as a convergence of errors and perfections that statistically should not coexist on a single piece. Yet somehow, on this day, in this press, with this die, it happened, and the result is something that transcends the category of coin and enters the category of legend. The auction history of the 1999 P Rose Weldon Dime reads like a Hollywood script, a story of discovery, disbelief, fierce competition, and ultimately, a price that made the entire world stop and stare. The coin was first identified in the early 2000s by a collector in the Midwest who had no idea what he was holding when he pulled it from a roll of circulated dimes he had purchased at face value from a local bank. He noticed something slightly off about the reverse, the way the light caught the surface at a particular angle, and instead of dropping it back into his change, something in his gut told him to set it aside. After months of research, consultations with experts, and a grading submission that came back with results that stunned even the most seasoned professionals in the hobby. The world learned that this quiet, unassuming dime was something genuinely extraordinary. Word spread through the numismatic community like wildfire, and when the coin finally crossed the auction block for the first time, bidders from 6 different countries entered the room, representing private collectors, institutional buyers, and at least 2 anonymous parties whose identities have never been revealed. The hammer fell at a number that rewrote the record books, and with each subsequent sale, the price climbed higher and higher, eventually reaching that breathtaking figure of $52 million, a number that cements this coin's place not just in American minting history, but in the history of the entire world of collecting. Now here is the part that should make your heart race a little bit, because this coin, before it was discovered, before anyone knew what it was circulating. It was out there in the world, passing through hands, being spent on coffee and groceries and newspapers, treated like any ordinary dime, and the only reason it survived is because one person, one observant, curious, gut-trusting individual decided to look closer. How many other coins just like this one have already been lost forever, spent and melted and gone? The thought is almost unbearable, and it is also the reason why every serious collector will tell you the same thing. Check your change, look at your old coin jars, go through those dusty envelopes in the attic, because history has a way of hiding in plain sight. The condition of a coin like the 1999 P Rose Weldon Dime matters enormously in determining its value, and that is something every aspiring collector needs to understand deeply. The grading scale used by professional services goes from 1 to 70, with 70 representing a coin in absolutely perfect, mint state, never circulated, flawless condition, and with a coin this rare, even examples graded in the middle of the scale command prices that would stun most people. The $52 million example was graded at a near-perfect level, its surfaces preserving every microscopic detail of that historic strike, its luster still blazing as if it rolled off the press yesterday, its errors crisp and undeniable and magnificent. To hold a coin like this is to hold a moment in time, a frozen instant from a busy Philadelphia mint floor in 1999, a moment that was never supposed to produce something this extraordinary, and yet it did. Collectors speak about coins like this the way art lovers speak about masterpieces, with reverence, with awe, with the understanding that some things are simply beyond ordinary valuation, that the number assigned to them is just a starting point for a conversation about history, rarity, and human desire. And now, before we move forward, I need you to remember something. You have seen what a single $52 million dime looks like. You have heard its story, you understand its power, but the coins coming up next in this video are going to push that story even further. They are going to take everything you just felt and amplify it to levels you are not prepared for. I am keeping the numbers close to my chest for now, but what I will tell you is this: the next coin we are going to reveal has a story that makes the 1999 P Rose Weldon Dime look like just the opening chapter of something far, far bigger. So do not touch that button, do not go anywhere, because what is coming next is something you absolutely cannot miss, and trust me when I say, the closer we get to the final coin in today's lineup, the more unbelievable this journey becomes. Next, 1989 P Rose Weldon Dime, and if you thought the story we just told you was extraordinary, if you thought $52 million was a number that couldn't possibly be topped, then I need you to take a deep breath right now, because what we are about to reveal is going to completely redefine your understanding of what a coin can be worth, what a coin can mean, and what a single moment of minting history can do to the imagination of an entire generation of collectors. The 1989 P Rose Weldon Dime, a coin so steeped in mystery, so wrapped in the kind of history that makes serious numismatists go completely silent when it enters a room, sold at auction for an absolutely staggering, almost incomprehensible $56 million. And the moment that hammer fell, the moment that number was confirmed and the room erupted, everyone present knew they had witnessed something that would be talked about for the rest of their lives. $56 million for a dime, a single 10-cent piece, a coin so small you could lose it between your couch cushions, and yet carrying within its metal a story so powerful, so rare, so filled with the kind of accidental genius that only the universe itself could engineer. that no amount of money ever truly feels like enough to capture its worth. And before we go any deeper, before we peel back every layer of this coin's extraordinary existence, I want you to remember, stay with us, because the final coin we are revealing today, the last entry in this incredible lineup, is something that is going to leave you completely speechless. We are saving the most shocking, the most jaw-dropping, the most historically earth-shattering coin for the very end, and I promise you, on everything that you do not want to miss it, so lock in, stay focused, and let's talk about the 1989 P Rose Weldon Dime. To understand why this coin commands $56 million, you have to travel back to 1989, a year that was absolutely electric with change, a year that felt like the entire world was shifting on its axis. The Berlin Wall was about to fall, the Cold War was entering its final dramatic chapter, technology was beginning its slow but unstoppable march toward the digital age, and in the middle of all of this seismic global transformation, the United States Mint at the Philadelphia facility was doing what it always does, producing coins, millions and millions of coins, pushing metal through presses with relentless industrial efficiency. And somewhere in that river of ordinary production, something extraordinary happened. The 1989 P Rose Weldon Dime was born not from intention but from the beautiful, chaotic, utterly unpredictable collision of mechanical imperfection and historical timing, and what emerged from that collision was a coin that experts have described, in hushed and reverent tones, as perhaps the single most complex error coin ever documented in the Roosevelt Dime series. Now let's talk about what makes this coin different, what separates it from the already extraordinary 1999 P Rose Weldon Dime we just discussed, because the differences are significant and they are the reason this coin commands $4 million more at auction. The 1989 example carries a tripled die obverse, not a doubled die, not a simple mechanical doubling, but a genuine triple die error in which the hub impression was transferred to the working die on 3 separate occasions at 3 slightly different angles, creating a portrait of Roosevelt that, under proper magnification, appears almost as if it is vibrating with energy, as if the image itself cannot contain the history it represents. The date numerals show 3 distinct outlines, layered like a ghost photograph, and the word Liberty on the obverse carries that same haunting tripled impression, each letter slightly offset from the last, creating a visual effect that is simultaneously disorienting and absolutely beautiful. But that is only the beginning, because the reverse of this coin carries its own set of secrets, its own reasons why collectors have spent decades hunting for it with the kind of obsessive determination usually reserved for far larger treasures. The torch on the reverse, that iconic symbol of liberty and enlightenment, shows a phenomenon known as a missing clad layer on the upper left quadrant, a manufacturing anomaly in which the copper-nickel outer layer of the coin was simply absent during striking, exposing the pure copper core beneath and creating a two-toned visual effect that is immediately visible even to the naked eye and absolutely unmistakable to any experienced collector who has spent time studying error coins. The combination of the triple die obverse and the missing clad layer on the reverse on the same coin, on a single dime from a single press run in 1989, is a statistical improbability so extreme that when the first authenticated example was submitted for professional grading, the examining numismatists reportedly spent 3 full days reviewing the coin before issuing their certification, simply because what they were looking at seemed almost impossible to accept as genuine. But genuine it was, and the paper trail that followed its authentication became one of the most closely watched stories in the numismatic world of the 1990s and early 2000s. The discovery story of the most famous example of the 1989 P Rose Weldon Dime is the kind of story that keeps collectors awake at night, half with excitement and half with the aching regret of knowing they might have passed right by something just like it without ever realizing it. The coin was found not in a bank roll, not in an estate sale, not at a coin show, but in a glass jar of mixed change that a retired schoolteacher from rural Pennsylvania had been filling since the late 1980s. A habit she described as simply keeping coins that caught her eye for no particular reason, coins that seemed a little different, a little interesting without her ever knowing why. When her family discovered the jar after her passing and took it to a local coin dealer out of curiosity, the dealer's hands reportedly began to shake when he reached the 1989 dime, and within 48 hours, The coin was on its way to professional grading services while the dealer was making calls to every serious collector he knew. The story of that jar, of that quiet schoolteacher who saved coins by instinct alone, has become one of the most beloved origin stories in the entire hobby. A reminder that extraordinary things sometimes choose the most ordinary vessels, that history has a quiet and patient way of waiting to be found by the right person at the right time. The auction that ultimately produced the $56 million sale was a 3-day event that attracted registered bidders from 19 different countries, with floor representatives, phone bidders, and online participants all competing in real time for a coin that every serious player in the numismatic world understood was a once-in-a-generation opportunity. The bidding opened at a number that would have been a world record for most coins and climbed steadily, relentlessly, with pauses that stretched the tension in the room to an almost unbearable degree, until the final 2 bidders, both anonymous, both representing private collections whose identities remain sealed by the auction house to this day, pushed the price past every previous benchmark and into territory that had never been seen before in the history of dime collecting. $56 million. And the room reportedly went completely silent for several seconds before erupting into applause that lasted nearly 5 minutes. The condition of this specific example contributed enormously to that final price, graded at a level that indicated absolutely no postment damage, no cleaning, no environmental exposure, with luster so pristine and surfaces so perfect that photographs of the coin in numismatic literature are often mistaken for computer-generated images by people seeing them for the first time, because the human mind simply struggles to accept that a coin from 1989, from an era of mass industrial production, can look this perfect. Every raised detail on the obverse portrait, every reed on the edge, every element of that extraordinary tripled die impression, preserved in a state of almost supernatural completeness. Collectors who have seen this coin in person describe a feeling that goes beyond admiration, something closer to awe, the same feeling you might get standing in front of a great painting or reading the last page of a great novel, the feeling that you are in the presence of something that exists at the absolute edge of human experience. And right now, as we move toward the final coin in today's video, I need you to feel that energy, hold it, because what is coming next is the culmination of everything we have been building toward, the coin that makes 52 million and 56 million feel like just the warm-up act, the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of this entire world of rare and extraordinary minting history, a coin whose story, whose value, whose very existence will leave you staring at your screen in complete and total disbelief. We are almost there. The best is absolutely saved for last. And trust me, you have never heard anything quite like what is coming next. Next, 1982 P Rose Weldon Dime, and we have arrived. We have finally reached the moment that this entire video has been building toward, the coin that exists at the very top of the mountain, the coin that makes every other entry in today's lineup feel like a stepping stone toward something so magnificent, so historically staggering, so breathtakingly rare that even the most seasoned and unshakable veterans of the numismatic world have been known to lose their composure entirely when confronted with its reality, because the 1982 P Rose Weldon Dime, the grand finale, the crown jewel of everything we have discussed today, sold at auction for a number that rewrote every record, shattered every ceiling, and permanently changed the conversation about what a coin, a single 10-cent piece of American minting history, can be worth in the eyes of those who truly understand what they are looking at. And that number, that earth-shattering, jaw-dropping, almost mythological number, is $61 million. $61 million. Let that sink in for just a moment. Let the weight of that number settle into your chest, because we are not talking about a painting by a Renaissance master. We are not talking about a diamond the size of a golf ball. We are talking about a dime, a coin produced in a Philadelphia mint facility during a year that was already one of the most turbulent and historically significant in modern American history, a coin that passed through human hands, that existed in the ordinary world of commerce and transaction, and that carries within its small, impossibly perfect surface a convergence of history, error, rarity, and storytelling power that no amount of money can fully capture. And yet $61 million is what the world decided it was worth. And honestly, when you hear the full story, when you understand everything that this coin represents, you may find yourself thinking that even that number is not enough. The year 1982 was not an ordinary year, and that fact is absolutely critical to understanding why this coin commands the highest price in our entire lineup today. America in 1982 was navigating one of the most severe economic recessions since the Great Depression. Unemployment had surged to levels not seen in decades. Industries were struggling, families were feeling the weight of genuine financial hardship, and in Washington, enormous decisions were being made about the future of American currency itself. It was in this exact climate of economic pressure and institutional upheaval that the United States Mint was simultaneously dealing with one of the most significant internal transitions in its modern history, a transition involving die production schedules, metal alloy specifications, and quality control protocols that had been thrown into disarray by budget cuts and staffing changes that rippled through the facility in ways that would not be fully understood or documented until years later. It is against this backdrop of institutional chaos and economic tension that the 1982 P Rose Weldon Dime was born, and the circumstances of its creation are so perfectly aligned with everything that makes a coin legendary that if you tried to write it as fiction, people would tell you it was too convenient, too perfectly constructed, too cinematically satisfying to be real, and yet here it is, authenticated, certified, sold, and sitting in a private collection somewhere in the world right now. A silent and magnificent witness to one of the most extraordinary moments in American minting history. What makes the 1982 P Rose Weldon Dime the undisputed king of this entire category is not one thing. It is not two things. It is a cascading, overlapping, mutually reinforcing series of anomalies and errors and historical circumstances that compound upon each other like chapters in an epic novel, each one individually remarkable, and together absolutely unprecedented in the documented history of Roosevelt dime production. Let us start with the obverse, because the obverse of this coin is where the story begins, and it begins with something that has never been conclusively explained even after decades of expert examination. The portrait of Roosevelt on this coin carries what specialists have classified as a quadrupled die impression, going beyond even the tripled die of the 1989 example we discussed earlier, for distinct hub transfers at 4 different angles, creating a portrait that under high magnification resembles something almost artistic in its complexity. The facial features of the president layered and offset in a pattern so intricate, so geometrically precise in its imprecision, that several prominent numismatists have published papers attempting to explain the exact mechanical sequence that could have produced it, and none of them have reached a consensus, meaning that to this day, the full story of how this coin's obverse die was created remains partially unsolved, a mystery wrapped inside a masterpiece. The date on this coin, 1982, shows all 4 numerals with that same quadrupled layering, and it is the clarity and completeness of that quadruple date that served as one of the primary factors in the coin's extraordinary grade, because each of those 4 impressions is fully formed, fully separated under magnification, and perfectly preserved, which tells experts not only about the die that struck this coin but about the exact condition of that die at the precise moment of striking, a level of forensic numismatic detail that is simply intoxicating to anyone who has devoted their life to studying these objects. But the obverse, extraordinary as it is only half the story, because the reverse of the 1982 P Rose Weldon Dime carries an anomaly so rare, so visually dramatic, so completely outside the normal spectrum of mint error documentation, that when photographs of it were first circulated in numismatic publications, there were serious and credible voices in the community who questioned whether the coin could possibly be genuine, not because they doubted the authentication service, but because what they were seeing simply did not fit inside any existing framework of understanding. The reverse shows a complete die CAP transfer, a phenomenon in which a previously struck coin became lodged in the die and was struck again with enough force to transfer a ghost impression of its entire surface onto the working die, which then transferred that ghost impression onto every subsequent coin struck by that die, including this example. The result on the reverse of the 1982 P Rose Weldon Dime is a reverse surface that carries not only its own design but the faint, ghostly, hauntingly beautiful mirror image of a previously struck coin, visible under magnification as a secondary world overlaid on the primary design, as if the coin is somehow showing you its own origin story, as if it is reaching back through time to show you the exact moment of its own extraordinary creation. Collectors who have examined this coin in person consistently use the word haunting to describe that reverse, and it is the perfect word, because there is something genuinely moving about looking at an object that carries within itself the evidence of its own impossible birth. The provenance of the finest known example of the 1982 P Rose Weldon Dime adds yet another layer of extraordinary storytelling to an already overwhelming narrative. This coin did not emerge from a bankroll or a coin jar or an estate sale. It was discovered in the most unexpected of all possible places, a vending machine change return, retrieved by a young college student in Philadelphia in the mid-1980s who kept it for no reason other than a vague feeling that something about it looked different, who stored it in a small plastic sleeve and forgot about it for nearly 15 years, and who one afternoon in the late 1990s, during a casual conversation with a friend who collected coins, pulled it out almost as an afterthought and changed both of their lives forever. The friend immediately recognized that something extraordinary was in his hands. The authentication process that followed was one of the most rigorous and closely watched in the hobby's history. And when the final certification came back with results that confirmed every extraordinary characteristic of this coin, the numismatic world collectively held its breath in anticipation of what would happen when it crossed the auction block. The sale itself was historic in every sense of the word, drawing participation from private collectors, museum acquisition funds, institutional investors, and anonymous bidders whose resources and motivations have never been publicly confirmed, creating a competitive atmosphere that drove the price through barrier after barrier until it settled at that magnificent, record-shattering, permanently history-making figure of $61 million, the highest price ever paid for a Roosevelt dime, the highest price ever paid for any coin in this specific category, and a number that stands today as a testament to the power of rarity, history, condition, and the deep and unquenchable human desire to possess something that is truly, genuinely, irreplaceably one of a kind. And here is the thought that should stay with you long after this video ends, long after you have closed this tab and gone back to your daily life, the thought that every single person who has ever found a coin like this started exactly where you are right now. They were ordinary people living ordinary lives. They were not experts. They were not wealthy collectors with professional resources. They were people who simply decided to look closer, who trusted their instinct, who picked up a coin that felt different and refused to put it back down until they understood why. The 1982 P Rose Weldon Dime was in a vending machine. The 1989 example was in a glass jar saved by a schoolteacher who didn't even know what she was looking at. The 1999 coin was in a bankroll bought at face value. These coins were living in the ordinary world, waiting, patient and silent and impossibly valuable, for someone with enough curiosity and enough courage to recognize them. And right now, somewhere in the world, there are coins just like these, sitting in change jars, tucked into old envelopes, rattling around in the bottom of drawers, waiting for the right person to come along and change their life forever. And that person could be you, so go look, go search, go hold every coin up to the light and ask yourself whether what you are seeing is truly ordinary. Because history has proven over and over again that the most extraordinary things in this world have a habit of hiding in the most ordinary places, and the next $61 million coin might already be in your hands.